Getting dot, yeah. It's cold tonight. We're heading into the mountains dot where to? Doesn't matter. We're going to Mbugwak, small town outside Sao Paulo. Dense forest, quiet roads. You ever hear about the teenagers who went camping and never came home? November 2003. Liana Friedenbach, 16. Felipe Caffé, 19. Young couple dot in love. Decided to spend a weekend in nature. They packed a tent. Told their parents they'd be back Monday. They never made it. What happened in those woods is one of the most brutal crimes in Brazilian history. Kidnapping, torture, rape, murder. 5 days of hell. And when it was over, Brazil had to confront something it didn't want to face. That evil isn't always calculated. Sometimes it's random, senseless, born from boredom and cruelty. Tonight, we're going to Mbugwak. We're going back to November 2003. We're going to talk about what happens when the kids cross paths with monsters. You ready? Because this one doesn't have a mystery. We know what happened. We know who did it. The horror is in the details, and in the question that haunts everyone who knows this story. Could it have been stopped? Let me tell you about Liana and Felipe and the 5 days that destroyed their families. Who were Liana and Felipe? Liana Friedenbach, born October 23, 1987, Sao Paulo, 16 years old, high school student, daughter of Ivo and Rose Friedenbach. Smart, creative, loved art, loved music, typical teenager figuring out who she wanted to be. Felipe Silva Caff, born 1984, Sao Paulo, 19 years old, university student, son of Yuri and Maria Cristina Caff, quiet, thoughtful, into nature, photography, hiking. They've been dating for about a year. Close. Serious. The kind of young love that feels like forever when you're that age. In November 2003, they decided to go camping. Nothing extreme, just a weekend in the woods. Get away from the city. Spend time together. They told their parents, got permission, packed their gear. On Friday, November 7th, 2003, they left Sao Paulo. Destination Mbugwak, a rural area about 50 kilometers from the city. Forest. Trails. Quiet. They set up camp near a road, remote but accessible. Friday night passed. Saturday. Sunday. Monday, November 10th, they were supposed to come home. They didn't. By Tuesday, their families were panicking. The search. Tuesday, November 11th. Liana's parents called police. Our daughter didn't come home. She was camping with her boyfriend. We can't reach them. Police started a search. Wednesday, November 12th. Search teams combed the area around Mbugwak. They found the campsite. Tent still standing. Sleeping bags, backpacks, personal items. But no Liana, no Felipe, and signs of struggle. Something terrible had happened. The suspects, while police searched, they got a tip. A local resident reported seeing suspicious people near the forest over the weekend. A group of young men, known criminals, hanging around the area. Police investigated. By Thursday, November 13th, they had names. Roberto Aparecido Alves Cardoso, 23 years old, known as Champinha. Criminal record. Robbery. Assault. Already on parole. Antonio Machas Filho, 20s. Known criminal, associated with Champinha and others. Police tracked them down, questioned them. At first, they denied everything, and then one of them broke. The confession. November 13th, 2003. Champinha confessed. He told police what happened, and it was worse than anyone imagined. November 8th, 2003. The kidnapping. Saturday morning. Liana and Felipe were at their campsite. Champinha and his group for men total were in the forest nearby. They weren't there to camp. They were bored, looking for trouble. They saw the tent, saw the young couple, and they decided to rob them. They approached, pulled out knives and a gun. Felipe tried to talk them down, offered money, offered their belongings. Take everything, he said. Just leave us alone. The criminals took their money, their cameras, their phones. But they didn't leave. Champinha looked at Liana, and he decided to take her too. They forced Liana and Felipe to pack up. Leave the campsite. Come with them. Liana and Felipe had no choice. They were marched deeper into the forest, to an abandoned house, isolated, hidden. No one around, and that's where the nightmare began. The captivity, 5 days of hell, Saturday, November 8th to Wednesday, November 12th. For 5 days, Liana and Felipe were held captive in that house. According to confessions and forensic evidence, Felipe was beaten, tied up, humiliated. The kidnappers taunted him, made him watch. Liana was raped, repeatedly, by multiple men, Champinha, the others, over and over, for 5 days. Felipe begged them to stop, begged them to let Liana go. They laughed. Liana begged, cried, pleaded. They didn't care. I'm not going to describe the details. You don't need them. But you need to understand, this wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't an accident. This was torture. Deliberate, prolonged, sadistic. For 5 days, the teenagers endured hell. And on the 5th day, their captors decided they'd had enough. November 12, 2003, the murders. Wednesday morning, Champinha and the others decided to kill them. They couldn't let them go. Liana and Felipe knew their faces, so they took them into the forest. Felipe was killed first, stabbed multiple times, left in the woods. Liana was taken separately. She was raped one final time, then strangled. Her body was left in the forest, hidden under leaves and branches. Liana Friedenbach was 16 years old. Felipe Caff was 19. The discovery, November 14, 2003. Police, guided by Champinha's confession, went to the forest. They found Felipe's body first, then Liana's. Forensic analysis confirmed multiple stab wounds on Felipe, evidence of prolonged sexual assault on Liana, ligature marks on both. They'd been tied up. Signs of torture. The autopsies were brutal to read. The families were destroyed. Brazil was horrified. The rest, Champinha and 3 accomplices, were arrested. Roberto Aparecido Alves Cardoso, Champinha, mastermind, primary rapist and killer. Antonio Machas Filho, accomplice, participated in kidnapping and assault. The others' names withheld in some reports due to minor status. One of the accomplices was a minor, 17 years old at the time of the crime. This would become important later. The trial began in 2006. Prosecution presented confessions from all involved, forensic evidence of rape and murder, witness testimony, physical evidence from the abandoned house. Defense argued for reduced sentences, claimed coercion, claimed mental illness. In 2007, the verdict, Champinha, guilty of kidnapping, rape, torture, and murder. But here's the problem. Champinha was 19 years old at the time of the crime. In Brazil, criminals under 21 at the time of their crime are tried as juveniles even for murder. Maximum sentence for a juvenile in Brazil, 3 years in a juvenile detention facility. Let me say that again. Champinha kidnapped, raped, tortured, and murdered the teenagers. Maximum sentence, 3 years. The public outrage. Brazil exploded. Protests, petitions, demands for justice. Liana's parents Ivo and Rose became activists. They fought for harsher sentences for violent juveniles. They fought to keep Champinha locked up. And here's what happened. In 2007, after serving 3 years, Champinha was technically supposed to be released, but psychiatrists evaluated him. Their conclusion: extreme danger to society, psychopathic tendencies, high risk of reoffending. So instead of being released, he was transferred to a psychiatric hospital for indefinite detention. He's been there ever since. As of 2024, Champinha is still institutionalized, not imprisoned but not free. The other accomplices? Some served their sentences and were released. Some are still in the system, but none face the full weight of justice that Liana's and Felipe's families believe they deserved. The legacy. Liana's case changed Brazil. It sparked debates about juvenile sentencing laws, parole conditions, psychiatric detention, victim rights. In 2012, Brazil passed the Lei Liana Friedenbach, a law allowing courts to extend detention for violent juvenile offenders if they're deemed dangerous. It was named after her, a law born from tragedy. But it didn't bring Liana back. It didn't bring Felipe back. and it didn't erase the 5 days of hell they endured. There's no mystery here. We know what happened. We know who did it. But let's talk about the why and what it reveals about evil. Theory 1. Opportunistic violence. Champinha and his group weren't planning to kidnap anyone that day. They saw the tent, saw an opportunity, started with robbery, escalated to kidnapping, then rape, then murder. This theory suggests it was spontaneous evil and planned, escalating. Problem: the level of cruelty over 5 days suggests something more than spontaneous violence. This was sustained, calculated, sadistic. Theory 2. Psychopathy. Psychiatrists who evaluated Champinha diagnosed him as a psychopath. Lack of empathy, no remorse, enjoyment of other suffering. He didn't rape and torture Liana because he was out of control. He did it because he enjoyed it. Evidence: post-arrest. Champinha showed no remorse, bragged about the crime to other inmates. His behavior in detention has been consistently violent and manipulative. Theory 3. Systemic failure. Champinha had a criminal record before Liana and Felipe. He was on parole. He should have been monitored. If the system had worked, if parole officers had tracked him, Liana and Felipe might still be alive. This theory says the crime was enabled by a broken system. Theory 4. The culture of violence. Brazil has a problem with violence. Normalization of cruelty. Lack of consequences. Overburdened justice system. Champinha grew up in poverty, surrounded by crime, desensitized to violence. This doesn't excuse what he did, but it helps explain how someone becomes capable of that level of evil. The unanswered questions: could this have been prevented? Should Champinha ever be released? What happened to the other accomplices? How do you rehabilitate someone who shows no remorse? What justice looks like when the law has limits? Liana and Felipe are gone. Champinha is institutionalized, but the questions remain. We're here. Look, I don't know how to end this one cleanly, because there's no clean ending. Liana Friedenbach was 16 years old. She went camping with her boyfriend, and she endured 5 days of torture before being murdered. Felipe Caffé tried to protect her, begged for her life, and was killed for it. Their families never recovered. Liana's parents became activists, fought for justice, got a law passed in her name, but they'll never get their daughter back. Felipe's parents live with the same hole. And Champinha? He's been in a psychiatric hospital for nearly 20 years, not free, but not in prison either. Some people think he should be released, that indefinite detention without a trial violates his rights. Others think he should never see freedom. I don't know the answer, but I know this: Liana and Felipe didn't get a choice. They didn't get to decide whether they lived or died. Champinha made that choice for them, and now society has to decide what to do with him. The meter's off. The forest is quiet, and somewhere in Sao Paulo, there are the graves. Liana Friedenbach, Felipe Caffé, 16 and 19, gone for over 20 years, but not forgotten. Soft ambient sound, reflective tone. There's an ancient truth that says evil is real. Not metaphorical, not abstract. Real. It walks among us. It makes choices. It destroys. Liana and Felipe encountered that evil, not because they did anything wrong, not because they deserved it, just because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. There's a principle woven into existence, that innocence is sacred, that to harm the innocent is to violate something fundamental. Liana was 16, Felipe was 19. They were kids, and they were tortured for 5 days. No reason, no justification, just cruelty. I think about their final moments sometimes. Did they pray? Did they beg? Did they hold on to hope? Or did they know, by the end, that they weren't going home? There's a promise in ancient wisdom that those who mourn will be comforted, that the innocent will be vindicated, that justice, even if delayed, will come. But what does comfort look like for Liana's mother? For Felipe's father? How do you find peace when your child was tortured to death? And what about Champinha? Psychiatrists say he's a psychopath. No empathy, no remorse. Does that mean he's beyond redemption? Or does it mean the system failed to shape him before he became a monster? I don't have the answer, but I know this: Champignon made choices. He chose to kidnap, to rape, to torture, to kill. Those choices have consequences. And one of those consequences is that he's been institutionalized for 20 years. Some people think that's justice. Others think it's not enough. We're told that vengeance belongs to a higher authority, that we shouldn't seek revenge, we should seek justice. But what does justice look like here? 3 years in juvenile detention, 20 years in a psychiatric hospital, life in prison, execution? I don't know. But I know that Liana and Felipe deserve to live. They deserve to grow up, to graduate, to fall in love again, to have families, to grow old. And that was taken from them by someone who felt nothing. There's a weight to that, a reminder that evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just happens. And all we can do is remember the victims and refuse to let their stories be forgotten. Hey, thanks for staying with me through this one. I know it's brutal. I know it's hard to hear. But Liana and Felipe's story needs to be told, because they didn't just disappear. They were murdered, and their families spent years fighting to make sure the people who did it stayed locked up. If this case affected you, if you're angry, heartbroken, or just heavy, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Let me know you were here. Subscribe if you want more stories that matter, cases that expose violence, injustice, the limits of the law. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think about Champignyon's indefinite detention, about juvenile sentencing laws, about how we protect or fail to protect innocent people. I read everyone. And if you know someone who cares about victim rights, justice reform, or stories that need to be remembered, share this with them. These stories matter. These names matter. I've got more cases, more stories, more truths. Next time, we're going somewhere just as dark. Until then, remember their names. Liana Friedenbach, Felipe Caffé. They deserve better.